So the fire drill I want to do tomorrow at 2, so we can go out, come in, and
Sounds
do that.
awesome.
I'll send that out. Check it out.
You need to mute.
Good afternoon. We are going to get started shortly. We're running into a few technical errors in getting our presenters able to actually present so that you can see things. So we'll get started. Give us about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, Paige.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
Okay, it's working now.
Great.
Are we on with everybody, or is it just you and me?
She's not getting ready to start. There's Miss Hurst.
Okay.
Our Paige that called in with us.
Okay, great. We're getting our other presenters.
Yes.
Well, I'll go ahead and get started, and then Teresa, if you can help, I will, you just tell me when to move slides and what to do. My name is Mrs. Hurst, Carmen Hurst. I'm the 7th grade assistant principal and also the administrator here at Webbridge, working with our PTA to put together our parent universities for this school year. So I'm pleased to announce this month's Helping Parents Establish Boundaries for the Holidays and starting off 2021 with good mental perspective. And we have our great friends, the LRJ Foundation, Teresa Rusby, with us today to guide the work. So I'm going to turn it over.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for hosting us today, and we're happy to be here. You know, the WebBridge community is very special to us, for all the students, for the parents, for the teachers. So we are excited to share some knowledge and education. And what we like to do is have a mix of presenters, because more perspective, the better, right? So today we're going to have a great conversation just around some, you know, the heavy workload our students are experiencing right now, just expectations and pressures that are coming upon them, and us as parents that we're, you know, dealing with as well, just in life in general, navigating through remote learning, hybrid learning, and through this pandemic. So we would like you to post any questions, comments in the chat box. If we can't get them all during this session, we're happy to get back to you. LRJ Foundation's website, lrjfoundation.com, has some great resources as well. You'll see a referral and hotline tab, and there's a section right for Alpharetta Milton resources. So we're here to support you guys on whatever it is you need. And then towards the end, we have a really great youth leader joining us from Alpharetta High School, and then Sally from the David Academy to help any of those that are already looking ahead to get some things in order for college prep and make that experience as less stressful as possible. So we're going to jump right in, and with that, we have Paige Santmeyer. She's a mental health professional, and she's going to lead you guys through this great presentation today on boundaries and good mental health.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it. Yes, I want to reiterate, please post questions. It's always more interesting when it's a little bit more interactive, and even chat among yourselves. If you have ideas of good resources or tips that have worked for your kids and you want to put it in the chat, great to have discussion going there too, just to share, because this is all about us supporting one another as a community. I'm going to start talking about some boundaries that we can put in place to reduce stress and increase connection. First thing is, what is a boundary? It's just technically a border. So think about a fence. That's a good physical boundary. But when we talk about it in terms of mental health, it's also considering things like, what are you able to handle? What is your emotional level? What is your physical energy level? So that can be tangible or intangible, and usually opposites, open, closed, flexible, inflexible, and each comes with benefits and drawbacks, of course. And things like a good visual is the lines on the road when you're driving. Solid yellow lines mean that you are required to stay where you are, you're limited. Whereas the broken line means that you're able to pass and move out of that lane. So boundaries are similar. They can be broken, not broken bad, but broken as in you can move, or they can be solid. And that just depends on where you are at any point in time. Areas during school break where you might want to consider adjusting boundaries because there'll be some shifts in your home. Expectations, structure, communication, and sociability. And I highly encourage you to enlist the help of and collaborate with your kids on setting some of these boundaries. Getting their buy-in always makes things a little bit easier at home. Expectations. What are you requiring of them, especially during the school break? So during school, of course, it's how are you going to manage your schoolwork? Versus during break, are you still going to require certain dress, or do they get to stay in their pajamas all day? Do they get to skip a shower every day, or is that a must? You know, these are teenagers, so I'm on the side of it's a must, but that's my teenagers. Schedules. You know, are you going to have set meal times? Are they required to attend them? Do chores relax or not? And also, I want you to kind of keep in mind your boundaries. You have needs as well, and boundaries is all about respecting everybody's needs. So especially if you're working from home, you're going to need times when it's quiet, when you're able to focus. And then a lot of folks need some downtime after work. You got to go take a walk or just kind of shift gears into family mode from work mode. And that's reasonable to ask for and talk about. Structure is the next slide. What do we mean about boundaries with structure? What time do we wake up? Are you going to, over the break, allow them to sleep in? Or do you still want them to keep a schedule to make the adjustment in the spring? easier if that's a problem that they have. Are you going to relax on some of the diet or exercise needs? So, what do they get to do with their free time? And bedtime, that's always a biggie on break. My kids like to flip it upside down, go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, and it kind of is disruptive. So are you going to require that they do something different or not? So a note here says that younger children may still need breaks or naps if they're overwhelmed by a flurry of activity. So you may want to continue with a more structured routine if that's something that they struggle with. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast here. I just got a text. Just kind of slow it down a little bit. So again, if you have any questions, please post those. Would love to see any input you have about that. All right. Next slide is about communication. With communication boundaries, we're thinking about like maintaining or relaxing the rules about how they communicate. Is it okay for them to text you from the bedroom, or do you want to have the face-to-face communication? Set those times that you can't be interrupted because you need your personal time. And the same goes for them. You know, they may have times that they really want to just do their own thing and they don't want to be interrupted, so be able to respect that. Plan to spend more time with your team. The school breaks are a wonderful time when everybody can relax a little bit, figure out what's working, what's not. There will need to be discussions about grades or other stressors and things that they're struggling with. But I think trying to focus at least early in the break on relating to them, who are, and it has some easy prompts there. And great ones are, how do you want to spend this break? Do you have any goals? Or do you just want to relax? And as you get closer to school, of course, you're going to need to shift the conversation to what do they need to do to prepare for that? Do they feel like they need to get some extra help? Or do they need more school supplies? Do they need to communicate with the teachers a little bit? Next slide. Here we want to talk about sociability. I'll mention a little bit later, but teens are hardwired for peer connection much more than family, and that's really hard for parents to adjust to a lot of times. So just understand with boundaries, you need to strike a balance. Communicate what works for you and what doesn't work for you, but also listen to what they want. Set your rules and expectations about when they must be around, especially holiday events that you want to do as a family. Are other people going to be invited to attend those family events with them? How open is that, or how set is it in what you need to do? And of course, the safety. With COVID going on, sociability is really hard. So search for things where there's balance of how to be safe, but also have fun, because we don't want them isolating, because they need this social interaction. Screen time is very important. It can give them a way to connect socially, but also want to limit that, because we all know that there are pitfalls to having a lot of screen time. So make sure they're taking breaks from that. Be creative. Come up with different ways. One great idea was making a pen pal, a virtual pen pal. You make videos for one another, or even send email letters to one another. It's like 21st century pen pals here. So just have some fun with it. Gaming can be another way that they can connect with people and chat, but make sure that they're checking their safety settings, their privacy settings, so that they aren't releasing too much information into the world. Okay, next slide. Screen time is very important. It can give them a way to connect socially, but also want to limit. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of different apps out there on how they can connect. So make sure that you are having some parental controls and surveillance of that. Just know what's going on, who they're connecting with. And maybe that's part of your boundaries, is setting rules on who they allow as friends and who they're not allowed to be friends with. So the key takeaways on the next slide for boundaries is they're necessary. This is a key skill for anyone, kids and adults alike. So teaching it to them while they're young, and especially in middle school, and they're learning other new skills. This is a great life skill to teach them. They are those tangible or intangible marks that defines you versus me. And that's an important thing to teach respect for themselves and for other people. But do set them for yourself. Parents in your own relationships need to have those boundaries. Work versus family, your marriage versus family time, your own alone time versus family time and expectations. And how are you going to balance your own responsibilities and requirements of these other obligations versus your self-care? And it doesn't make you a bad person. This is a very healthy skill. And we always like to say in the therapy room, think of the oxygen mask metaphor from getting on an airplane. You have to take care of yourself before you take care of other people, or you just aren't going to have the air and energy for it. Any questions about boundaries before we move on? Okay, we're going to move on to helping teens balance heavy workloads with their mental health. And this isn't just during school break, of course. This is skill building for all time. Oh, what a pretty picture. Okay, so a couple of slides up, please. Kids are facing a lot of different stressors, and I think most of us know or can anticipate some of them. Of course, there's schoolwork, the end of the semester, they're facing exams, which for some kids, this is the first time that they're taking semester ending exams, and that's anything new can create stress. Peer relationships, as I said, are like one of the biggest things that they're worried about right now. So of course that's going to be a main focus, but there's conflict, there's change, there's hormones, especially in middle school. So they're fighting a lot of things there. Family events and expectations, what are their chores? And, you know, I have one high schooler and we're facing the SAT, ACT, college visits, all of that, but they start thinking about that early and talking about it in middle school. So know that that's starting to enter into some of their mental energy. What are they thinking about there? And COVID has changed everything. I think kids and adults alike are experiencing COVID with very high levels of stress. And failure is a big fear of all teenagers. So that drives a lot of stress. So what are the signs to watch for in teens when they're having stress? Anything that's kind of a change, whether that be in their mood or their behaviors. If you see them becoming irritable when they're normally really cheerful, if they're withdrawing from friends and isolating in their rooms, whereas they used to want to spend a lot of time with other people, loss of interest in activities that they really enjoy, as well as sleep problems. Those are all big red flags that something's going on that you need to kind of check in on and see how they're managing that. Weight changes, eating patterns, either they start eating a lot or they stop eating altogether. They talk about problem focusing, those executive functioning things. Can they remember things? Can they organize? Can they actually do what is required of them? Or are they really struggling and everything's falling off of their radar? They lose interest in schoolwork or stop putting in the effort. And the personal grooming. I think that bar has slid a little bit, so we kind of need to be conscious that we're all walking around in pajamas a lot of the time now. So how much of that are you going to require and how much do you let slide? Are you seeing increased risky behaviors? And that can include drug or alcohol use, vaping, sneaking out, lying. If those are changes in behavior in your kids, that's a sign of stress. Worrying, hopelessness, panic attacks, or even self-shaming statements, things that you're hearing come out of their mouth that are very negative about themselves that you haven't heard before. Those can all be signs that they're struggling, and especially those thoughts or talking about death and suicide. Big red flags there. Next slide, please. I see a couple of questions popping up. Need tips that work for enforcing screen time, ones that work. Yeah, I think that's a battle we all fight. You have options for parental controls. I know Comcast, you can go in and set times or block certain sites. But really, we want to be promoting a lot of internal motivation for their decision making. You want to be talking to them about why these are good choices, what is healthy for them, and if they make unhealthy choices, what's the downside to that? What can they learn from making a choice that maybe you thought was more important at that time? So that is a really difficult one, especially when school requires so much of them right now, and connecting with friends it requires some screen time. I wish I had a tried and true rule that says this works. It really is going to be a collaboration between you and your team. So engage them in that conversation, revisit what works and what doesn't work and what they want to change and do differently. Especially if you're seeing those signs of stress. Too much screen time can increase stress. So you want to point those out and say, I think this might not be healthy for you. Let's at least try some of these other behaviors. And we're getting ready to get into the specific stress management skills. So, hey, let's go do this instead of staying on the screen right now. Any plans to introduce a frequent break or get away from the screen? I think that's part of the scheduling. I think that's part of what you take on. Okay, so on to stress management skills. First thing we're going to talk about is healthy habits. So next slide, please. Sleep is so important. 8 to 10 hours is recommended for teenagers, but most average only 5 to 7 hours. So that really negatively affects the way your brain functions, and memory, focus, all of those things are going to be automatically inhibited if you're not getting enough sleep. So some good things to start at bedtime. Turn those screens off at least 1 hour prior to bedtime. Do some light stretching, some guided imagery, something that's relaxing, and develop a routine that they do every single night. So I don't know that I can go to sleep without taking my makeup off and brushing my teeth and washing my face. Those things are just required. So for me, so have them develop their own thing that works. That could be journaling or reading or something else that's calming. Okay. Need to go a couple more slides up, please. So there are other basic healthy habits, getting them out in the sun, 15 to 20 minutes a day, get that vitamin D. That will help their circadian rhythm, which helps their sleep, which helps their mood. So exposure to sunlight is a wonderful thing. Exercise, everybody should be getting 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week. And that doesn't have to be like heavy weightlifting. That could be a casual walk around the block, but just move. That changes so much of your body chemistry and keeps so much in check. Water, drinking water. Try and drink more water than sodas or other heavy sugary things. Diluted water like tea or coffee, diluted fruit juice, those things are all okay, but make sure you're staying hydrated, especially in the winter. And your diet is very important because our happy hormones, as they're called, are created, 90% of them are in our gut. So if you have an unhealthy diet, you're not producing these happy hormones. So it's going to be much harder for you to feel good and feel like you're mentally ready for the day if you aren't having a really good diet. That doesn't mean cut out everything and, altogether, but just have a good balance, but do avoid processed foods and sugar as much as possible. But it's okay to indulge too. It is the holidays. Okay. Next slide is continuing healthy habit screens. Again, we can't emphasize enough that it is important to limit that as much as you can with their cooperation, but helping them understand that screen time does affect their mental health. I read the other day that our brains interpret the blue light that's put off by the screens as sunlight. So if they're on screens late at night, their brains think that it's the daytime, and that doesn't help them keep a very, very healthy sleep schedule. And even during breaks, try to get them to stick to somewhat of a schedule and have a routine. They still need to get dressed, they need to shower, they need to include all of these healthy habits in their daily routines. Okay, next slide, please. And one more, please. So obvious, well, not so obvious things are decrease your exposure to stressors. Sometimes we are walking around irritable, tense, and we realize, hey, I've been watching the news and I'm feeling awful. I've been talking with this one friend who always kind of gets on my nerves. So I need to kind of take a break from those things. Or I'm looking over my to-do list and there's so much to do, and boy, am I stressed out. So give yourself permission to kind of take a time out from these things. You don't have to end the friendship and you don't have to neglect your to-do list, but take a time out and do different things. Stop watching the news, things that increase your stress. You don't have to stay engaged with. Talk about your problem, because it releases hormones into your body that release negative feelings. You may or may not solve them as you talk about them with other people, but even just talking about it helps you feel better. Be mindful, observe non-judgmentally what's happening within your body. That's how you're aware of where your boundaries are at any given moment, whether you can do more or have to say no in different things. You're mindfully aware of what you are doing and what you're capable of. Breathing, deep breathe. When you're stressed out, tense, just do some deep breathing for 30 seconds. There's some great apps out there that you can use, like Calm or Abide, probably a million more. Or just turn on like some white noise and breathe rhythmically. Try to get deep breaths. And music, you can dance it out or sing it out or just enjoy the music beats itself, because that makes your brain work better and calms you. It's been proven to help reduce pain, all sorts of benefits from that. So study skills are another great way to manage stress. You can teach your kids where and when to study. Simulating a classroom if they're at home is great, because that will help them with their recall. Teaching them to identify what's important and what's not. And sometimes that's reviewing the study guide with them for the exams and saying, oh, this was the high point. And they'll learn that over time, but you can give them a little guidance too, so that they don't read and reread and reread things that are unnecessary. And encourage breaks. Keeping on pushing or getting up early and cramming for semesters and things really doesn't help. There's been studies that show that there is no difference in performance, and it actually causes you to lose performance when you push yourself too hard, too far. We're only made to focus for about 45 minutes to an hour. So being able to kind of keep an eye on that. So when you reach that 45 minutes to an hour mark, teach your kids to take a break, work really hard for that time, and then step away for a little bit and do some self-care that lets them release some stress. And that can be going out and doing their exercise, or picking up, drawing, reading, listening to the music again, or texting their friends at that moment. Coordinating study breaks is a great way for them to stay connected and release stress. Okay, a couple more slides ahead, please. Other study skills to learn, time management. Help them learn to prioritize. Having too many to-dos, even if none of them are very big, are going to overwhelm anybody. So teach them to identify what's most important right now and do those first. Little wins build our confidence. So even starting on the smaller things that can be checked off quickly can also just improve mood and help with motivation. Organizational skills, helping them keep up with things. I love a planner, I love a to-do list, but not everybody works that way. So helping them identify what works with them to keep them organized so things don't fall off of their radar. And part of that is learning to plan time for self-care and those breaks, as we talked about. Okay, one more slide, please. We'll be on the same page here. All right, third stress management skill is staying positive. Mindset has so much to do with our stress level. If you're focusing on negative things and what's hard right now, your stress and the pressure you feel and your energy levels are all going to be affected negatively. So try to stay focused on that half glass full image instead of what you're struggling with. And don't put everything in one basket. Balance your activities, be involved in different things, because when you struggle in that one area, if that's all you've got, of course your stress is going to go up. But maybe balancing things between hobbies, family, friendships, their school, that will help them manage their stress a little bit better. And really changing the overall perspective on stress. It's always described as, don't stress, got to get rid of stress. But it's not harmful. If we can see it as helpful and motivating, it's moving us toward a challenge. It's giving us the energy and the focus that we need to take on something that is challenging. And we can do hard things. We need to start telling ourselves, even though I'm stressed, I can do this. I'm not going to avoid this. The goal is to manage stress, not eliminate it. We can't eliminate. That's like telling somebody to stop breathing. Okay, next slide, please. Staying positive also means giving them perspective. Teach them to look beyond this exact moment. That our brains don't fully develop until we're about 23, 24 years old. So they may not be able to see the big picture yet. So remind them that this phase of school is just a phase. It will pass. Should the worst happen and they fail, then this is a learning opportunity. Everybody fails. The more we can normalize struggle and failure and help them move to meaning making and growing from that, the better it will be. And teach them to take a step back and look, is this really going to matter? You're so upset right now, but is this going to matter in a week, a year, 5 years? They will survive school. And they're going to have a wonderful future, and their grades are not the biggest thing that's going to affect that. Learning these skills and having a positive attitude will. Okay. Stress management, number 4, ask for help. That's the next slide. Asking for help doesn't make you a failure, although teenagers are known to have this perceived spotlight where they think everybody is watching them and judging them. Normalize that. Every teenager thinks that. Some adults continue to think that, but asking for help does not make you a failure. It doesn't mean that you're weak. Teach them to compare themselves to their prior performance, not to other people. And parents, I know it's so tempting, but don't step in and do their work for them. They will learn nothing if you take over. They will learn that they need someone to do it for them, that they're incapable if you're stepping in and rescuing them. So teach them, guide them, support them, give them tips, ask them, can I offer you some advice based on my experience? And don't get your feelings hurt if they go, no, I can handle it. No, that's what I often get from mine. And then they come back the next day and go, yeah, let me hear what you would do. So emphasize best effort, not perfection. And that will relieve some of the stress that they think they have to live under. Okay. Next slide. Celebrate success. Mark important changes and progress. It's okay to be special and to recognize them for achievement. And it doesn't have, we want that to be authentic, of course, but even saying that was a really hard exam and it's behind you. This is before the grade comes in. Hey, you studied hard. You worked to understand this. You asked for help. We're so proud of the effort you put into this, regardless of what the grade is. So teach them that all work and no play makes someone a dull person, and all fun and no work also makes somebody a little bit irresponsible. So we got to strike that balance. Okay, next slide, please. Social pressures, as we talked about, teens need those social interactions. It's normal for them to crave time with friends over family, and they care deeply about what everybody's thinking about them because they're wired for acceptance. They want acceptance. So give them space to explore this and keep an eye on them. So don't lose touch, but stay in contact with them and check in with them. Next slide is face-to-face interactions do lessen feelings of loneliness, even though they may be on the screens all the time and chatting with people all the time. Loneliness is actually an epidemic right now among young people because there's something lacking in online interactions as compared to the face-to-face interactions. So the more we can get them face-to-face, the better, of course, with safety in mind. But when you can't, recognize that this is hard. This is taking a toll on people and help them grieve that. And be as creative as you can. Find safe friends, quote unquote safe friends who are quarantining the same level you are, have similar views as you, do distanced gatherings in your driveway or on porches, hiking, things like that can check all these other boxes of healthy habits, but also let them interact face to face. But if the only way they can connect is through devices, you may have to relax some of those rules about it. And that's that boundary talk again, is what are you willing to do that also feeds your sense of safety with them online. And playing games can be a great way for them to do that. That's fun and interactive at the same time. Okay, next slide. So ways you can support your teen's mental health. Insight for yourself. You've got to support and model good health and promotion of relationships in order for your teens to learn how to do that too. First would be controlling your emotions in the moment. Try to be non-reactive to whatever they say or do, which is really, really hard. But that helps you evaluate and respond instead of always reacting. There's a skill that I teach to a lot of parents called REST, and it's an anagram that stands for relax, take a breath, evaluate the situation, kind of figure out, do I need to jump in? Is there danger here, or can I do something different here? Set your intention on how you want to react. Like, I want to have a great relationship. I don't want my child to feel judged or ashamed here. And then take action according to that. So try and control our reactivity and have a response. Understand that your responses and your reactions are coming from fears and your own triggers, and that's okay. You can expect that to happen, but just be aware that that's what's going on within you, and manage those expectations that come from those fears. Are you adding to their stress, or are you decreasing their stress and teaching them good life skills? And all of those will positively or negatively affect your relationship with your teen. Okay, next slide. We talked a little bit about celebrating milestones, and similarly, praise your teen for their efforts to achieve, so that they develop an accurate self-image. Don't praise if it's unearned or inaccurate, because they're going to know. They will know that they didn't really work very hard at something, and they'll feel anxious about that discrepancy inside. So really do praise good effort. Praise when they have taken steps outside themselves to grow and learn and do things differently and stretch themselves a little bit. And model those effective conflict resolution skills. Teach them to advocate for themselves. and stand up for themselves when necessary, and try not to take over unless they're really in danger. Okay, have them, I'm on slide 30, the next one please. Have them do age-appropriate chores and activities that will build their sense of autonomy and responsibility, and that they can control and have an effect on the world. Teach them to manage that stress. Don't allow it to become chronic. And they can't avoid stress and anxiety. It's going to be a part of their life, and they need to learn how to respond to it. Say no on occasion. Provide for their needs, but think how much they can learn if you say no and don't say yes to all of their wants. So these are great opportunities to just have great parenting skills there. Always putting your kids' needs first teaches them that you will take care of them and their needs, instead of teaching them independence, and it depletes you. So modeling those healthy boundaries is very important. Keep in mind what you can and you can't give. And then have a lot of empathy and insight into what they're struggling with. Understanding goes a long way. Next slide. Trust your parenting instincts to know when to back off of expectations and when to hold them to align. Recognize that they may have different goals and different values. They may be your kids, but they see the world a little bit differently. And sometimes it's really fun to get to know what those differences are and where they came from. So recognize they're different people than you. And parenting is a tightrope. You will mess up. That's just part of the journey for both of you. Have empathy for yourself and focus on repairing relationships when necessary. If you screw up, great. You've modeled that you know how to make up for something that is stressful to you and hard for you. That's okay. Just prioritize that relationship with your teenager. And I think that you will both find better mental health and growth. Okay. And I think that's it for me. There are a couple of resources that I use in coming up with these slides. There's a great book by Janine Janot called Disintegrating Student, Super Smart and Falling Apart. It's available on Amazon and probably other retailers, but it's a really great book that talks about how parents can best support kids and have a great relationship with them. And there's also an ebook by Louise Clark called Parenting the Modern Teen, The Secret to Understanding, Connecting, and Communicating with Your Teenager in a Disconnected, Distracted, and Digital World. So those are great resources that I will highly recommend. I'll try and copy those and put them in the chat here for you if anybody's interested in looking at those. What questions are there? Okay.
Paige, thank you very much for this.
Yes, thank you, Teresa.
Absolutely. Great. Well, if you guys have any continued questions, or if you think of any, feel free to still add them into the chat box. Paige will be with us as we continue some of the presentation. But at this time, I'm excited to introduce to you an incredible young man. His name is Rohit. He is actually an alumni of Webbridge Middle School, and he is a senior at Alpharetta High School. And we connected with Rohit back in February. Assistant Principal Carmen Hurst and the LRJ Foundation created this amazing youth leadership and wellness summit where 5 middle schools came together and conducted conference-like sessions with education from mental health, wellness, to structure and some of the great things we're talking about today on leadership competencies, and a really amazing event where these kids can come together and bond from different schools, form great relationships, and really build on their mental health in a lot of different areas. Well, Rohit was one of the youth leaders from Alpharetta High School that over saw several of these 7th and 8th grade students. And from that relationship, Rohit has joined the LRJ Foundation and has continued to present with myself and my team to several different areas, including McCormick and Company and international presentations several times through this fall season while he's navigating remote learning and doing really great things with his studies and preparing for college. So he's an amazing perspective, and I'm excited for you guys to hear from him today.
Yeah, can everyone hear me? I just want to test to see if the audio is working.
Yes, Rohit, you're great. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So I am dialed in, so I'm trying to figure out the connection with the audio and video. Apologies to everyone in advance if there's some sort of issues, but I'll do my best and figure everything out. But yeah, thank you again, Ms. Rusby, for the kind words and the amazing introduction. I am Rohit Hubendiker, a senior at Alpharetta High School, and I just want to preface by saying that although I haven't really worked, I'm not really in the labor force. I haven't been through the experiences that all the parents have been through. I think I do bring a unique perspective in that I've been in middle school, or I am a current high schooler, and I can kind of see things from a unique perspective in that from the student's perspective and kind of show what we're thinking and how we want to interact within the household. So today I'll just be talking about what I call the power of talking. And obviously in these last 8 months or so, with these unique times where all we're doing is just waking up, joining these calls, logging off, and then sleeping and repeating the cycle, I think the idea of talking has become exponentially more important and exponentially more valuable, not only in school, at work, but also within a family. And I think maintaining communication with others and developing what I call parent-to-child relationships, also known as P2C relationships. I think now is the perfect time to start developing those with your child, or even grow these relationships. So the problem in the status quo I identify is I think there's a lack of communication between parents and their children. I think parents are, from my perspective and my experiences, my parents and my friends' parents have kind of just told them to do things, and I, along with my friends, have kind of just blindly obeyed the commands that my parents have told me, and just blindly listened to them and not really establish a mode of communication where I can share my problems and they can share their issues to me. I think now is the time where we have a lack of proper communication with parents and children, and how we can solve that is by developing avenues of communication. So whether that be every week or so, you can sit down with your child and just have a discussion. Just you can start off by acknowledging that you're here for them, and maybe rather than forcing them to share something about their life, whether they have stresses with their schools, with their clubs, with their friends, I think it's important that as parents that you're able to just let them know that you're always there for them, because you never know what they're thinking at the end of the day. I think a lot of us, including myself, I used to just kind of bottle up my issues that I had with regards to my mental wellness, rather than kind of just share them with my parents, because for a good bit of middle school and like the first half of high school, I didn't really see my parents as people that I could really lean to if I had a lot of stress to deal with, and I kind of needed to relieve some of that. So it's important that now you can start letting them know that you're there as a support system, and although it may be indirectly understood, it's always good to explicitly say that to your child every so often, just so that they're always reminded that you're here to care for them and to support for them, and just to be to have an open ear and to listen to anything that they have to say. And I think the reason that we need to do this now is to improve mental wellness within our family and within the household, being able to develop those personal relationships that are just, it's like more than kind of a parent, it's more than, I guess, two family members talking. It's just two people talking about their problems. I think at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to, is just an individual sharing about his or her problems to another individual, and then both individuals are just communicating on how they can solve these problems and what they can do moving forward. And I think that's why P2C relationships are super important for that. And now the dynamic that I've been able to build with my parents is, I always can go to them if I ever have something, especially my mom. Her and I are really similar people, and we both bond in that sense. So even if she has something, whether it's work related or non-work related, that, you know, she's kind of just dealing with, she'll always come to me and just ask for advice. And I'll give my unfiltered advice, and she'll always give her unfiltered advice to me. So I think now that we've been able to do that, looking back, I think it's really important that I was able to reach out to them and just, you know, ask, you know, is everything okay? And then they also do the same, just check in every so often. Yeah. So then now kind of towards the next slide of how we can take that to the next step. Once these parent to child relationships are developed and they are enriched, and they are enforced, I guess, on a daily basis, how can students in their unique position take it to the next step and enrich their own mental wellness on a personal level? I think that comes from just exploring what they're interested in and finding their purpose or finding their passion. So now, again, is a great time where students with, you know, whether they may not have free time or not, I think it's really important that they're able to find some free time, you know, every day or so. Maybe it could be 30 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be multiple hours, where they can just kind of dedicate that towards working on, you know, a hobby that they've always been interested in, or just researching on a hobby that they've been interested in, whether that be, you know, sports, drawing, painting, anything. And for me, I love talking, I love arguing. I've been a debater all my life, and I've done debate all of high school. And my debate partner and I just love talking all the time. So we thought, like, we sat down one day in early April and we realized, okay, we both love talking. What can we do with that? How can we explore that? How can we demonstrate to others that we love talking and we love sharing our opinions? And the way that we were able to do that is by starting our own podcast. Our podcast, which is called Straight Up Podcast, is just Brian, my debate partner, and myself, just sharing our unfiltered opinion on a lot of issues that are pressing to us as teenagers and the world in general. So again, like that's just one example of how we were able to demonstrate our interests. So I do encourage that for the students out there listening, and for the parents out there as well, that you communicate to the students that, you know, now is the best time to explore their passions and anything that they could be interested in, no matter how serious or casual it may be, to just explore that and give it a shot, because you never know what could happen from there, and you never know where that could go. So again, I really do encourage that you guys are able to explore your passions and see what can you formulate out of that. Because for example, like whenever I'm working on my podcast every other day or so, even though I am, like, you know, working on it and doing work and doing research 1 or 2 hours a day, it doesn't really feel like work. It just feels like I'm just doing something that I enjoy. And, you know, that is a great escape from going on 6 Zoom calls a day for my classes, or going on club calls. I think it's a great escape from all the normal things that we're going on right now and the routine that we've all kind of familiarized ourselves in. Being able to explore our passions is great to have an escape from everything else. So I think now the next slide is kind of just talking about things for the students specifically, and what I like to call the gears of the grind. So this may sound like a weird little title, but the grind, or grinding, is, I guess, a new term that's popular amongst teenagers. If you're not familiar with it, grinding kind of just refers to doing work, I guess, in plain and simple terms. So whenever my mom would ask me, like, what am I doing, I'd always just say I'm grinding, which is, you know, I'm working on something. And nowadays my to-do list never ends, and I'm always doing something. I'm always doing some work for some club or some class. So I'd always say that I'm grinding. So I guess the gears of the grind are 3 main aspects of middle school and high school students' lives, of, you know, what I recommend and what I suggest that these students do for these next few years. So the first step is seize the possibilities. Again, just as I mentioned before, now is the best time to just explore anything that you're interested in, or that you may be interested in. So seize any and every opportunity that you may have, because you never know what can it amount to, and you never know the people that you're going to meet or the things that you can accomplish. So, you know, it always starts with seizing the possibilities and, you know, recognizing that there are opportunities out there, and I think they're just sitting there for you to take them. And the second step is trust the process. You know, I think this has been a really popular phrase, you know, lately, just in general. But I think it's super important to trust the process of hard work and dedication, and realize that there aren't really any shortcuts, and the only way that you really want to achieve things and feel like you've earned those things and get that personal fulfillment and, enrich mental wellness is by sticking with the process of putting in hard work and realizing that you can't really take any loopholes, and you always have to give it your 110% no matter what you're working towards. Again, I think this becomes especially important outside of schoolwork, and more on clubs and extracurriculars where, it may seem like they're not really that serious and they're kind of just like really small hobbies. But I think extracurriculars to me were probably my most defining aspect of high school, and it has really opened me up to a lot of new people and new experiences that I would not have been exposed to otherwise. So I think being able to put in my 110% towards these clubs and getting those amazing results really showed me what the process is and how much I need to just stick to it, rather than kind of thinking in my own mind like, oh yeah, I can just maneuver myself around this and do a lot less work and still get the same results. It's just not going to happen. And then the last step, I think I'm realizing this a lot later than others, is just enjoy the journey. I think a lot of people are very result driven and goal driven, which is amazing, and I do applaud them. And being motivated by the end result is a great thing, but also that forces people to tend to overlook, all the steps that you take along the way to get to that end result. Whether it's you're working towards a championship for a debate tournament, something that I've come across a lot in these past few years. Like I would see that as an end goal, but I would often overlook, all the field trips that I go to with my friends and all of those little experiences here and there that I really would mean a lot more than that end result. And I think it's important for students to realize that even though that end result is really rewarding and is really fulfilling, there are a lot of things along the way that are just as fulfilling, if not even more. So I think it's super important to enjoy the journey, enjoy it now, because, middle school and high school, you'll never find two of those experiences ever again in your life. And these next 3, 4, 5, 6 years will just never be the same. And it's really hard to mimic that. So now is a time where I think you just enjoy all the time that you have now. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, I guess. Try everything, do as much as you can without obviously spreading yourself too thin or making it too hard for yourself to balance everything. But again, I really do recommend that you guys are able to just figure out your life now and do whatever you possibly can, get experience with everything as much as possible, so that when you look towards, stuff like college and stuff beyond that, you're in a unique perspective compared to your peers, where you've been through a lot more stuff and you've learned a lot more and you've met a lot more people. And I think in the long term, that's going to be much more beneficial than you think now.
Excellent. Rohit, thank you so much for sharing this great perspective. I mean, coming from you means so much, because these are some things that maybe, some parents and caretakers, like in teachers, like ourselves, want to do, but are not sure what to do as far as what's the best approach maybe to lean into my child or my student. And I think we can all see that Rohit is pretty far beyond his years. He's just an incredible young man. And Rohit, we're just so thankful for your insight and moving this forward as far as helping our parents really lean into our students during these times and lean into ourselves and have the confidence and great self-esteem as parents, because at the end of the day, we want what's best for our children. Same thing for our teachers and administrators that are working so hard to make everything possible this school year to be as normal as quite possible in these days. But leaning into some great advice can never go wrong when it comes from the mouth of babes, that they say. So with that, sometimes it's not as easy to go through different life experiences and enjoy the journey. Like Rohit was saying, he's done a lot of great work and a lot of deep personal work and development, as you can tell, to get him to this great place he is, to navigate through the workload and the pressures and expectations. And as our middle school students are moving in, to the next phase and looking ahead to college and maybe getting stressed over that or not able to balance, not have that structure, sometimes we need to bring in some reinforcement and need some help with that. And the LRJ Foundation is connected with the David Academy, and you've probably heard of them, and I know the community is familiar with them, but Sally's here with us today just to share a little bit with some parents on what's available to them to help you guys through the next steps. So Sally, welcome. And just one moment, we're just trying to get Sally unmuted. All right, Sally, is that you with us?
Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being so patient. You know, the topic I wanted to cover is how to reduce the pressure of academic planning as your child approaches high school. And I think if, you know, this new sort of age of technology has taught us anything, it is that it is stressful. Even just what I was trying to do, you know, I'm sitting over here going, all right, keep calm. These are technology issues and we just have to work through them. And I don't know if your household is anything like mine. I also have an 8th grader, so I get it. You know, there's an element of when mom is feeling stressed, everyone around me feels that. And even though I might try to hide it, I'm not always good at it, and it's palpable. And I think similarly, when our kids are feeling stress as parents, we feel that too. And we want to help. You know, I think that's what everybody's been talking about today is, you know, as a parent, you guys logged on to this for a reason. You clearly, you know, you care about having these conversations with your child. And, you know, that's why we're all kind of here to do what we're doing. You know, the transition from middle school to high school has the propensity to be a very stressful one, whether it's your first child going through it or your second or your third. Every kid is different, and every child's academic journey and what they want to do post high school is going to look a little bit different. And one of the things, at the David Academy that we're so passionate about is helping families through this transition of high school to college. I don't know if your situation is like mine, but a lot of what my 8th grader is feeling is, okay, moving forward, now my grades really count. What does that mean? What does that look like? And maybe you guys have had that conversation with your kids too. We are in the business of, helping to try to take that burden off of managing your kids' academic success. So you can get back to being just the support system that your child needs, not the one who is cracking the whip and stressing yourself and your child out. And that's just an easy, it's an easy position for parents to find themselves in. We all know that school guidance counselors have a student caseload that's well beyond their ability to devote any kind of individualized personal time to. And so,
Mallory, is that you with us?
yes, can you hear me?
Hear me? Yes, we can.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. Thank you, everyone, for being so.
So, sorry, there was a little bit of a glitch there. So we all know that, like I was saying, school guidance counselor issues, they just don't have the time. So as you're planning ahead, if your only plan is to use the guidance office, you are not going to be successful in getting all of the resources that you really need. And one of the most common things that we hear at the David Academy from parents is, oh, why didn't anyone tell me this sooner? Or I wish I had known, fill in the blank. And that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations now as you're looking ahead. I want to talk about the 4 must-haves. Number 1 is you got to have a plan. What should we be doing freshman year? What should we be doing sophomore year, junior year, senior year to make sure that we're on track? It's really important to have a plan. I think with anything in life, this, your chances are going to be much greater of success if you have a plan. The second must-have is you need to have some trusted advisors, whether that's family members or friends or other parents whose kids have gone on to do something similar to maybe what your child is interested in. That could also be educational consultant, financial planner, a test prep company. Have these trusted advisors kind of in your arsenal and use them. There's a lot of quote unquote conventional wisdom out there of, people will throw things out on Facebook like, hey, we're thinking about doing X. What are your thoughts or what have your experiences been? And there's a lot of wisdom in putting that out there, but I think you also have to consider the source. Not everybody's situation is going to be the same, and what makes sense for one family is not necessarily the best thing for your family. For example, often the advice that we hear from a test prep perspective is, take both the SAT and the ACT and see which one you do better on. That's not great advice because these are very different tests and they have very different strategies. And so if you're going to find yourself wasting time and money on preparation if you're going to take both. What you need to do is pick the one that's right for you and focus on that one only. Colleges are going to evaluate them exactly the same. Another example as regard test prep is, wait till your junior year to take the SAT or the ACT. And some of the thinking behind that is, give your student more time to have taken some classes, maybe higher level maths and things like that that are going to benefit them on the test. But the truth to that one is most of the content that you need to know to be successful on those tests, students have actually learned by the end of their freshman year, and the rest of it is learning test-taking strategy, and that's something that can be taught. Junior year is such a key year academically with lots of APs, lots of extracurriculars. A lot of students are getting part-time jobs. They're driving. Their social lives are flourishing. And if you're waiting till your junior year to start that testing process, you're actually adding more stress on. If you begin the process in the summer before their sophomore year, and you can completely be done with it by the end of sophomore year and breathe a sigh of relief so that junior year, senior year, you're focusing more on your academics and building your resume for college. The third must-have is have conversations with your child. I think that's been an overwhelming key of what we've been talking about here today. Talk to your kids about their areas of interest. Do they want to go to college? Perhaps trade school might even be a better fit for their particular academic skill set. Do they see themselves staying close to home for college, or are they interested in possibly going out of state? Are there any specific colleges or programs that they're interested in visiting? What about their academic journey is making them feel stressed? What are his or her strengths and weaknesses as a student? These are all really important conversations to be having with your children. And I think this one lends itself into number 4, which is have realistic expectations for yourself and your child, and be flexible enough to change those expectations as needed, depending on how your child's going to change over the next 4 years, which they certainly will. I mean, if you think about it, did you go to the college that you thought you would when you were a freshman? Did you end up majoring in the field that you thought you would? If you were like me, I thought I was going to go into the College of Education, but I ended up changing, after my freshman year. Did you take a job that was within your major that you studied? If you had it to do all over again with the college testing and application process, what would you change? Have those expectations and have those conversations with your kids about what is your plan for how you're going to pay for college. We hate to see those situations where maybe families didn't plan soon enough for what is this really going to look like from a financial burden standpoint? What is this really going to look like if, all of a sudden now my kid's interested in this over here, but maybe we didn't take the right formative classes to kind of set ourselves up for that. These are all really, really important conversations to have, and they're ongoing conversations. Your child's future success is not only dependent upon GPA and test scores, but also their social emotional well-being. And that's something we talk a lot about at the David Academy. We do consults with families to determine what are those goals ahead of time. And if your student has what we call quote unquote buy-in to the process, this is going to be a huge indicator of how successful a student is going to be. And a lot of times we'll see parents and families, they'll come to us and we can tell right away within 5 minutes of talking to their student on one of these consults that this kid does not want to be here. They are not interested in putting in the work that's going to be required. This is clearly mom and dad's idea. And that's okay, because sometimes kids need a little bit of an encouragement. But at the same time, if your student, your child does not have buy-in to any of these processes that we've been talking about today, they're not going to be successful. It's going to be a waste of mom and dad's time. It's going to be a waste of money, which again produces further stress. And so this is why I think consulting with an educational professional is one of those really important things in helping to determine what the next steps are going to be. I know we're running a little bit long here on time, and I certainly apologize for the technical difficulties on my end, but if there are any specific questions that anybody has, of course, feel free to ask. Important conversations to be having with your children. And I think this one lends itself into number 4, which is have realistic expectations for yourself and your child, and be flexible enough to change those expectations as needed. Change over the next years, which they
great. If you can just there we go. Thank you so much for your input. Parents and teachers from Woodbridge Middle School, thank you so much for having us here today. Like I like to say when we close out a webinar, this is just the start of the conversation. We're here to continue any further questions, any further support. Woodbridge and their PTA do an amazing job to connecting to parents, and we really are here to support that and enhance that in any way possible. So if you don't know resources or what's available at Woodbridge, ask. They have a great mix of resources in the community and in-house for you guys, and we're here to support in any way possible.
Like me, I thought I was going to go into college education, but I ended up changing.
Not exactly sure what's happening with the repeat of things, but thank you, Teresa, and the LRJ Foundation and all of our presenters today. we have recorded this, and so I will be perfectly transparent. This is new for me to be able to post it, but I'm going to work on it. I'll have my growth mindset, and we'll power through and get that to our PTA president so she can help and we'll try to post it on our website. So again, thank you everyone. I think this has been a great event, and I hope you have learned it. Feel free to reach out to me at WebBridge if you need to get in contact with people. I will be happy to do that for you. Thank you so much for your attendance, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Carmen.